everyone. Thank you so much for coming and joining us for Epetōme's first ever brand event. I can't believe it's nearly been a year since we've launched. As someone who absolutely loves health and nutrition and science, but also just absolutely loves food, Epetōme definitely came out of a place of passion and desire to try and create a product in essentially an industry that can be very unregulated. And I think when we're thinking of supplements, they can definitely feel as something that's kind of quite premium or sometimes quite confusing, or how do I really know if this is actually going to make any difference? And using everything that I've learned over the years and also listening to my clients and what they wanted, I really wanted to do something that was simple, accessible, and actually made a difference and was high quality that people could trust. And I think whenever you're building a brand like this, you just need time. And I think a year later, our customer feedback and our community says it all. We get life-changing messages and DMs and reviews pretty much every single day now. And when it came to throwing our first ever brand event, I was like, okay, what are we gonna do? Do we just do a party? Do we just do kind of like a campaign? I really wanted to bring together people that I really respect in the field and industry, because these are the people that I turn to if I'm ever looking for any advice, or I would recommend people to gain advice from, because they truly are fantastic at what they do. So why not share all of their amazing knowledge around gut health and digestion with you, and pretty much just give you a lovely breadth of information to start in the new year, get you inspired about gut health, understand the importance of gut health and how many different parts of our lives it impacts. And when you are able to basically unlock the power of your gut, that's a very cringy statement to say, but I actually do feel like it's true. When you're able to unlock the power of your gut, you can just achieve so many things when it comes to your health and well-being, from your mind, your skin, your immune system. It pretty much affects it all. But enough from me. I'm going to introduce you to a wonderful panel. In fact, I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. So starting from my furthest right.
Hi everyone, I'm John Swann. I'm a professor of biomolecular medicine at the University of Southampton and visiting professor at Imperial College, and I work on metabolism, and in particular how the microbes in your gut can influence host or human metabolism, with a specific focus on how the microbes can influence the brain development, brain function, things like cognition and mood.
Fantastic.
I'm Dr. Saliha Mahmood Ahmed. I am an NHS gastroenterologist. I work at Imperial College London as well. I won MasterChef in 2017, and I've done a master's in obesity and clinical nutrition. Again, I'm very passionate about the gut-brain axis and food, fundamentally, more than anything else. I like eating. I write cookbooks as well. Gorgeous.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Frankie Jackson-Spence. I'm a medical doctor and I actually specialise in cancer clinical trials. In particular, I'm doing a PhD in kidney and bladder cancer, and a lot of the work I do in a professional sense is utilising the immune system to help target cancers. And as we know, a lot of the immune system lives in the gut. On the side of that, I run an educational social media platform, Dr. Frankie. I post lots of lifestyle and preventative advice. On one hand, I treat the cancer, and on the other hand, I really believe in lots of the daily lifestyle habits that we can do to prevent it happening. So I have those two hats.
Last on our list.
Hi, I'm Thivi. I'm a consultant dermatologist, but I'm also a nutritionist. At the moment, I think I'm still the only dual qualified one. I hope there's some more coming very soon, and I won't be able to say that anymore. That would be amazing. And so my passion is the role of nutrition in skin health. I've written a book called Skin Food, and I do research at King's, and we run a nutrition dermatology program there. We call it nutritional dermatology. And so I'm just really passionate about everything we're talking about today. I think it's amazing. You've brought everyone together.
No, thanks all for giving your time. Right. So we're going to kick things off, and I'm going to be asking you some questions first. So can you explain why the gut is often referred as the second brain, and how gut health impacts digestion and our overall well-being?
Yes. So why is your gut your second brain? Well, you have a brain, but your gut has loads and loads of nerves in it. And it's been described as having almost as many nerves inside it as a cat would have in their brain, for example. Now, I'm not sure if that's entirely scientifically true because, you know, who's actually gone and measured the size of a cat's brain? But the point is this, there's loads and loads of nerves inside, and the gut used to be thought of as a sort of very inert organ. But actually, we know that it communicates with the brain and virtually every other part of the body. It's not just a tube that goes from your mouth to your back passage. It's so much more than that. And actually, in terms of influencing your overall well-being, well, we've all heard of the term, you are what you eat. But whilst that is true, how is that true? How is what you eat influencing every aspect of your body? And actually, the critical interface between your environment and everything around you and your food, the food that you eat and your body is the gut, as well as the skin, of course. But the gut really has a massive influence. So what you eat influences the composition of a gargantuan mass of gut bugs that live inside you. And they exert these amazing functions of harnessing the power and the nutrition in your food, of influencing production of various metabolites, which influence lots of other functions inside the body. So I think we have to really get away from thinking about our gut as just something that functions to, you know, provide us the things that we need to live. It's actually something that needs to be cared for and looked after and fostered as best possible so that we can get all the wide-ranging health benefits from improvement in brain function, which other people will talk about, to prevention of heart disease, reduced risk of developing diabetes, and just having a better poo.
Amen.
Critically, just being able to have good daily digestive functions, like not being too bloated all the time or being able to have a good poo. So it is really important. It's a part of our everyday life that we've not looked after. When I went to medical school, quite a long time ago now, but you know, we'd never even heard of the gut microbiome, and we weren't taught about it at all. So how much things have changed in the last 15 years. Oh, I revealed it. There we go. Was things have really changed. Yeah.
I think as well, it's one of those things that, would you say, and this is actually just a off question to all of you, that you are seeing more people experiencing digestive health issues? Do you feel like it's a trend that is growing, or is it something that we're just getting more awareness about it?
It's definitely growing.
And
there's quite robust data to say that there are people are experiencing more digestive issues. There's certainly more evidence that there are more bowel cancers than there ever were before, and there's a range of reasons for that. But the gut microbiome almost certainly plays an important role in that. So looking after our gut health is more important today than it ever was, because 21st century life is really different to the life that we used to live before. Our parents, grandparents, ancestors lived. So yes, certainly there is more of it.
Yeah, perfect. And final question for you. How do I know that there's something off with my digestive system?
How do you know if there's something off? Well, in honesty, sometimes you don't know. And there's lots of aspects of your health where you don't know that something's wrong until the proverbial stool hits the fan. Someone has a big event like a heart attack or something big, or a stroke, and then you think, oh, things aren't right. So a lot of these things for lots of people can be hidden, which is why actually doing what we can, even when we feel well, is beneficial, firstly. Secondly, there are some people who have lots of digestive sort of ailments, just feeling like they can't digest their food properly, feeling like their bowel function isn't quite normal, feeling bloated, feeling sometimes even a lack of enjoyment from food or an inability to be able to choose and select the right things, feeling adverse reactions to various foods. And then there's some more general broad symptoms which are quite non-specific and vague, like feeling foggy or clouded or lacking mental clarity, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that's a bit more vague. And then there's skin health, which you'll go into as well, feeling that you have breakouts and feeling that, your body doesn't move quite as fast as it used to. All these little things can be related to your gut health.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I think it's why we have a whole host of feedback from our customers experiencing like improvements in skin, improvements in even like PMS symptoms from taking Epetōme, because directly targeting the gut affects actually the whole body as a system, which I think is, if you take away anything, it's like, it's not just about digestion, it's about so much more. Right, thank you so much. That was fascinating. Dr. Thivi. So we've heard about the gut-skin axis, but what is the science behind it? How can improving our gut health contribute to balanced skin?
So if you'd asked me this question like 5 years ago, I'd be like, Emily, I mean, it's a bit sketchy, this whole gut skin thing. But in the last 5 years, the amount of research that has gone into understanding the gut and its relation to the skin, what we call the gut-skin axis, has just grown exponentially. We had a meeting last night. We're doing a big project on the gut-skin axis. We looked at 500 papers, 500 projects on how the gut relates to the skin. So that body of evidence is growing, and we're talking about eczema, we're talking about psoriasis, rosacea, acne. These are common complaints. We all get those things. And it's not that the gut is the only thing that matters with those conditions. Of course, there's genetics, there's your hormones, there's stress. The skin is just very easily influenced by so many things in our environment. But the incredible thing is that we really have mastery of our own gut, and we have the power to improve our gut health, and it really isn't that hard. That's what we were talking about earlier. So your gut and your skin, that is an important piece of the puzzle, and one that we really haven't thought about enough until much more recently.
So would you say that there are any specific foods which are particularly kind of gut skin loving that you would often recommend, or dietary habits that our audience can pick up or choose or change to help kind of both improve their gut health and also their skin health?
So when it comes to skin health, everything you eat for your skin is great for your gut. So I always try and remember it as glow. So you need your greens, you need all of those multiple coloured fruits and vegetables, you need lean proteins, and that could be vegetarian sources, that could be fish, meat, whatever your choice will be. You need those healthy fats, you need the oils, and you need those whole grains. And people are always trying to remove whole grains from their diet, but they're so important for your gut health. All of that fibre feeds the good bacteria. And so glow for your gut, glow for your skin. It's actually, there's just so much overlap. And we've got all those amazing probiotic foods, you know, that are introducing good bacteria in the gut. That is all helpful in addition to your skin health as well. So it's actually eat for your gut, eat for your skin. There's a lot of overlap there.
One final question from me. What would you say the biggest misconception about nutrition, gut health and skin there is?
So I think restriction is the biggest problem I see in clinic. And people think, right, I've got psoriasis, I'm going to cut and cut and cut. I'm going to keep removing foods from my diet. Actually, a lot of the time, those are not causing the skin condition. It's actually following a more anti-inflammatory diet that's going to be helpful for you, and one that is incorporating all of those whole grains and good fats and all the things that we've been talking about. So I'm very cognizant of restrictive eating habits in the clinic. I watch out for them because it's very common in skin patients. So people with skin issues are very quick to cut from their diet.
Thank you. Right, moving on to Dr. Jonathan. So there's increasing talk about the gut-brain connection. So how does our gut microbiome directly influence our mental health, or indirectly?
Yeah, so we've known for a long time that the brain and the gut are connected. So a prime example is when you're nervous, you think butterflies in your stomach. That's showing your brain to your gut. But actually, increasingly, we're seeing connections the other way. And so, for example, people with depressive-like symptoms have different microbes in their stools to those without. But these were like mainly associations. So how do we know it's not depressive-like symptoms shaping the microbes in your gut? And actually, it was through mainly rodent experiments. So looking at rodents without any microbes actually had different behaviors to those that with microbes. But actually, some of the really pivotal studies in this field showed that you could take stool samples, so the microbes in the stools, from people with depression, transplant them into rodents, and then they start to express depressive-like symptoms, sort of showing that you could transfer those behaviors. And we can talk afterwards how you tell if a mouse is depressed. But how do they do this? So There are mechanisms like the chemicals they produce, the metabolites, they can reach the brain and have an effect. There are immune interactions, so the microbes can move from your gut into circulation, into the brain to trigger things like neuroinflammation, which can result in changes in moods. And then we've also heard about the amount of neurons in the gut as well, and the microbes can interact with those as well. And that can shape things like depression, like anxiety, things like ASD, ADHD, as well as modifying things like appetite as well.
Fabulous. So stress is a big factor in mental health. Can you explain how stress impacts the gut and what steps we can take to break that gut-brain stress cycle?
Yeah, so again, going back to the butterfly analogy, so we know if you're stressed, you have changes in gut motility, gut secretions, and these in turn will change and modify the microbes, which can result in that kind of vicious cycle. It can modify the types of metabolites those microbes are making, which will impact on gut health, which can lead to things like a leaky gut, which again can allow more microbes to move into the circulation and trigger things like inflammation. So you get this cycle. Also, things like stress can affect appetite and food preferences, which again can have that impact on the gut and perhaps more sort of unhealthy food choices.
A bonus question for me. Sorry, I don't mean to keep on throwing these in. The statistic that 70% of our serotonin is produced within the gut is thrown around a lot. And sometimes I think this can be a little bit misleading. How does our gut serotonin impact our body?
Oh, good question. So you have, so it's quite complex to go into. So you have serotonin is what we call a neurotransmitter. So if you think you have signals passed down, say from the brain to a muscle, you will have an electrical current pass through the neuron and then will reach the end of the neuron. That gets converted into a chemical signal, which is what we refer to as a neurotransmitter. Serotonin is one of those neurotransmitters, and so it's important for regulating or sort of transmitting that connection from the brain to the gut. But we know that many microbes in the gut can produce serotonin as well. It's really interesting because you, again, sorry to get too bogged down in this, so you produce serotonin from an amino acid called tryptophan, which you get from the diet. And microbes can make that serotonin from that tryptophan. So if you've got say this half of the audience, your microbiome is enriched for bacteria that convert tryptophan serotonin, and yours isn't, then if you all consume exactly the same amount of tryptophan in your diet, you won't see much of that tryptophan because your microbes are using it all, whereas you will. And then that can be used to make your own serotonin. That can affect things like mood as well.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Last but not least, my lovely Dr. Frankie. So how does the gut impact hormonal balance, especially for women? And is there evidence that probiotics can actually influence our hormones?
It's a great question, and similar to what was said before, when I was at medical school 10 years ago, this just wasn't a thing. People really just talked about gut health in terms of digestion, but now we know it has this massive impact on our hormones, on our immune system, on our mood, so many parameters of our health. I think when it comes to hormonal health, we are still scraping the surface in terms of evidence. So there is emerging evidence, but we need more in this space. Hormones and gut health have this bidirectional relationship. So our hormones directly impact our gut. And a great example of this for women is during menstruation, during the menstrual period, many of you might notice that you get gut symptoms. So things like bloating or diarrhea or change in bowel habits. And this is because our gut lining responds to those fluctuations in the female sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and others. And so that's a great example of how the hormones can affect the gut. The gut lining and the cells of the gut lining, there's some cells called enteroendocrine cells, to get sciencey, they can also metabolize and produce hormones. So a great example of this is when we talk about weight loss medications like Ozempic, we have these cells in the gut lining that respond to nutrient intake and release hormones like glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1, which influences our metabolism, our appetite, our satiety. Those cells also have a role in female sex hormone metabolism. So not to get too sciencey, but estrogen, a really popular and well-known female sex hormone, circulates in our blood in three forms. We have estrone, estradiol, and estriol. And it goes to the liver and it gets metabolized and it gets bound to these other compounds and it basically renders them useless and they get excreted by the body. But the gut lining cells have the ability to kind of recycle these estrogens, and they process them and they make them useful again, and they're re-released into the bloodstream. So if you imagine that all of our guts and all of our population of gut microbiomes are individual and unique, we all have different species and different amounts, the amount of estrogen metabolism is therefore going to vary between us. And it theoretically explains why some women suffer in part with things like menstrual irregularities or conditions like PCOS, or why some women experience really bad symptoms of menopause. And in part, it may be because there is differences in the sex hormone metabolism within the gut. And this isn't hard evidence. I don't want you to take away that, it's your gut health causing your PCOS. But I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see more and more evidence in this space that the differences between female hormones is in part genetic and in part due to our guts.
It's fascinating. A quick question as well. Obviously, the gut is the major site of detoxification of estrogen. Do we have any evidence to suggest that those with irregular bowel movements, so those who are a bit more kind of constipated, not going to the bathroom regularly, can that then in turn affect female hormone balance?
Absolutely. We have observational studies that show that women with conditions like PCOS have less diverse microbiomes than women who don't suffer with these conditions, and are more likely to have conditions like irritable bowel syndrome and IBS, which can present as irregular bowel habits. I don't think there is enough hard evidence for me to say a firm answer of, the problem lies in the gut. But definitely part of the problem does lie in the gut. I think when we think about our health in general, I really think we're going to look back in a few years and realize we've been focusing on the wrong thing. It really is like the gut is from your mouth all the way through. It goes through your whole body. It's that barrier between the outside and the inside. And I think so many aspects of our health originate here. And we've been focusing on fixing the problem by putting a plaster on it, by treating the end result. And it really does all start in the gut.
I think as well, it's like everyone's microbiome is as unique as your own fingerprint. So when you're trying to create kind of a blanket of information or generic advice when everyone is so unique, I think it's about building people's confidence within their own bodies again, and understanding your own body again, and understand what works for you. And I think I'm really excited for kind of that.
And I think something I do want to say is that you'll see a lot of information on social media in particular about how early years are really important in creating gut microbiome diversity. But it's not too late to improve your gut microbiome now. If you've had a really restrictive diet, or you've been through university and had maybe a poor diet, or you've had food intolerances and you've been cutting things out without really finding out what's causing it, it's not too late to improve your gut microbiome diversity. You genuinely can, by making small tweaks to your diet, start to increase the number of strains and the amount of different strains. And so I really want that to be the takeaway message, that if you are suffering with these issues, you can make change. It's not too late.
Love it, thank you. So my final wrap-up question for all of you. What is your favourite small change that our audience can make right now, or today, not necessarily right now, now to improve their gut health? I'll start with you, Dr. Jonathan.
I'll be boring.
Yeah.
And I'll say just increase lots and lots of fibre intake.
Love
that would
it.
be my boring one.
Fibre is sexy,
which
yeah.
I think is often hard to get into your diet. I think the recommended amount is about 30 grams, and most people do about 20 grams. But I think with excellent cooking recipes and the like, you can really increase that. So that would be my go-to.
Perfect.
I think mine is to cook.
Yeah.
Cook and then maybe cook a bit more. Because as human beings, I think there's this really interesting thing that they say, humans are coctivores. And that means the only species to inhabit planet Earth who can actually cook. You don't see your farmyard animal cooking, do you? You don't see monkeys being able to cook for themselves. We are able to cook and extract nutrients from food, and that's what's made us the humans we are today, with our big old brains, our ability to think, and our actually relatively small gut relative to animals. So, being able to cook is a privilege, and it is fundamentally and anthropologically a human activity. So please engage in your destiny, which is to cook.
Yeah.
And actually, most people who do cook for themselves are safeguarding their gut health in many